Spider-Man No Way Home was directed by John Watts and stars Tom Holland, Zendaya, and Benedict Cumberbatch, and picks up directly after the events of Spider-Man Far From Home, as the entire world now knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. And so Peter Parker decides to visit Doctor Strange in hopes that he can find a spell that will make everybody forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. However, when the spell goes wrong, there are supervillains from other universes where Spider-Man exists that come into this world and begin to wreak havoc. And so Spider-Man must find a way to send these villains back to their original places in the multiverse. Guys, I am so excited to finally talk about this movie. This has been one of my most anticipated films of the year, and it has been a film that I've also been very nervous about. I've been really afraid that they wouldn't be able to pull this film off because of so much that is going on, so many villains, so many characters, and I can safely say that they were able to do everything right and make this an extremely special and unforgettable Spider-Man movie experience. Guys, I'm sorry that it's been so long since I last did a review on the channel. It has been around a month since I last did a video, and I've just been really busy with school, with work, and just my own social life. And there are plenty of other reviews that I wanted to do here on the channel, but just didn't have time to talk about. But I had to talk about this film in particular. No Way Home has no reason to be as good as it is and be as satisfying as it is. Again, it is juggling a lot of characters, a lot of villains, but it is able to devote plenty of time to each. Now, I will say that some villains get the shaft more than others, but all the villains, in a way, still have a central goal. They have something that they are after and that they are seeking. And it is extremely compelling the way they are able to take these villains that were in previous Spider-Man films and develop them even farther than they did in those original films. And it was just, as a fan of the Spider-Man movies, the Spider-Man franchise, not just the MCU Spider-Man, but the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man and the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, it was just really great seeing these villains again, such as Willem Dafoe playing Green Goblin once again. Never thought I would ever see that again, but I'm so glad that it happened. Same with Alfred Molina. It is fantastic seeing him once again. And I have to praise Tom Holland in particular for this film. Now, there are a lot of people that just absolutely love Tom Holland's Spider-Man, and I really do love Tom Holland in this role, but I feel like in the previous Spider-Man films that he's been in, he really hasn't been able to go to the places that I want Spider-Man to go to. And this film gives that to me. There was always something missing from Homecoming and Far From Home that stopped me from loving those films. And it's here, and it's the conflict that Peter Parker has to go through with being both Peter Parker and Spider-Man, and the consequences of his good intentions. And Tom Holland acts in this film beautifully. He really gets this character into some dark places, and the character really struggles throughout this story. And there's so many great moments that I wish I could talk about, but I can't talk about them because of spoilers. But nonetheless, Tom Holland is fantastic. So is Zendaya. This is probably the best that I have loved Zendaya in all of these films. And I have not been the biggest fan of Zendaya's MJ. I warmed up to her a lot in Far From Home, but I loved her in this. And her chemistry with Tom Holland is so fantastic. They are wonderful together. I also really liked seeing Benedict Cumberbatch in this film. I was afraid that he wasn't going to be utilized that much, like more or less for the setup of the film. Kind of like how he was introduced in Thor Ragnarok. But I can safely say that he plays a huge part in this film, and you kind of need this character for this film to really work, and he is really good. I love scenes with him and Tom Holland ever since they shared screen time in Infinity War. They just really have a great budding relationship, and I thought that was a lot of fun. They are also a part of my favorite action scene in the entire movie, which is the train scene that is in the mirror dimension. It is wonderfully filmed. The cinematography is really great in this film, and they are really able to do some spectacular things, for lack of a better word, and it was really, really great. Also, I think Michael Giacchino's score really shines in this film in particular. The Spider-Man theme for the MCU has always been really good, and the music has been great. But this here is fantastic. It has the great action music, the great somber music, and just some really emotional tracks that really make you care about what is going on in this story. When it does get dark, when it does get sad, when it does get exciting, it just hits you differently than the previous two Spider-Man movies did. I also thought the ending of this film was absolutely fantastic. It's probably the best ending to a Spider-Man movie since maybe Spider-Man 1, because I absolutely love the ending to that film, and the ending to this film is both triumphant, bittersweet, and extremely satisfying for the character. Peter Parker truly goes through an arc throughout this film, and it's really interesting that with all these villains throughout the film, the biggest villain of the film is Peter Parker himself. And he's doing things that he thinks are the right thing to do. But those things that he tries to do have severe consequences. And he has to struggle with that and deal with that and learn from it. And it just made me love this Spider-Man in a way that I haven't loved him before. And it was just really, really great. There's some great moments throughout. It's great seeing these villains again. It's great having some really awesome fan service that doesn't feel forced or shoehorned in and feels organic to the story that they are trying to tell. And I just absolutely had a blast. Now, I do have some problems with the film. Some of this is kind of nitpicky, but I will say that the comedy, for the most part, I do really enjoy. I laughed a lot in this film. However, the MCU has a particular set of humor that it does, where it's very quippy. It's something that was introduced in the first Iron Man film, and it's just something that they've continued on since then. And that's perfectly fine, because it works for these films. However, the villains of this movie start acting kind of weird. They start acting like MCU characters instead of the established characters that they already were. And so the comedy felt kind of off with some of these villains. And so that kind of took me out of the film a little bit, but it wasn't like this huge complaint. There is also a moment later on in the film where it does feel like there was a scene missing. Like, certain characters start talking like they met each other before, and it's like, we didn't see that happen. It feels like there was a scene that was cut earlier on in the film. And that also reminds me, too, that there is some very early jumbling around in the first act, which, honestly, the first act and the third act are probably my favorite acts of the entire movie. But I will say, in the first act, there is just this moment where, Peter Parker is, to the world, he is now revealed to be Spider-Man, and they kind of sort of get him out of a sticky situation really quickly. And it feels like there was a scene that was cut, like some sort of like big courtroom scene, and we just didn't get that. But really, those are all the problems I have with the film. The rest of the film, I was just having such a blast with. It was fun, it was lighthearted, it was enjoyable, it was really satisfying, and just, it was sad at times, and I cried quite a bit, and it just was everything I could have hoped for, and in some ways, it was more. And it was just the best Spider-Man movie of the MCU, in my opinion. I really enjoy Homecoming, and I enjoy Far From Home, but No Way Home really gave me what I felt the Spider-Man of the MCU was missing, and I hope to see more from Tom Holland coming soon. So anyway, guys, with all that said, I'm gonna give Spider-Man No Way Home an 8 out of 10. Well, guys, I want to thank you for watching this review. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will be doing more reviews regularly soon. I have a review for Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince coming up, as well as my annual Christmas review, so look forward to those reviews coming soon. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and stay positive.